Good morning, everybody. What a better way to start the third day here at the ATM with a talk about pricing intelligence and NDC. And I have to say, for me, this is a really defining moment because we are here in the Travel Tech Show in the theater sponsored by Sabre. And some of you may know that Sabre has been my past. Now I'm in the future with Infare. I'll talk to you why that's the case. But we are today, I think, in a very defining moment between the past and the future. And I'll show you what that has to do with pricing intelligence, NDC, machine learning, and many of these other things which have to do with big data. I think the conclusion of my talk is going to be that we need to redefine pricing intelligence going forward. And well, you may ask yourself, what is pricing intelligence actually, correct? So let's take a look. And the best thing to always start this is if you look outside. What is in other industries happening with regards to pricing intelligence? So let's look at one big brand, Amazon, okay? When Amazon started in 1997, they didn't make any money. And they didn't make any money for more than 10 years. Why? Because they always offered the lowest price. That was their only USP, lowest price. And how did they do this? They looked at what the customer wanted. They looked at their supply, what they had to sell. And the third thing is they really, really monitored competitive pricing every second on other sites. And they changed very dynamically the pricing basically every minute on the website. And you can still see today that they are doing it. Today, they are making money because with all their data they have amassed over the years, they have much better prediction capability of what prices are going to be in special retail goods. So Amazon is really a leader in dynamic pricing in the retail area, and that's why they have been so successful. So Amazon is the first example. They succeeded on lowest price, very clear competitive airfare, and competitive price benchmarking. So let's look at the second example, which did this a little differently. Everybody has used Uber, I would say, correct? It's working really well here in Dubai, I have to say, and in many other cities around the world. And why is that? Because they are very transparent about the price. You can basically see it before you book. And in some hours of the day, they have what they call surge pricing. So they automatically take the price and they adapt it to the demand. Now, they say they need to do this in order to make drivers come where the demand is. But I think they're actually wanting to do this in order to make more money, correct? So that's what they call surge pricing. And they have been criticized for that as well. So here you have two examples from the retail world and from the travel world, actually, where one is really focusing on low price, competitive airfare benchmarking, and competitive price benchmarking, and the other one is focusing on surge pricing and on using high demands for really premium pricing. So what does that mean more generally for pricing intelligence in the travel industry? So overall, as you can see, travel is a very complex world, okay? We have a perishable product, which if the plane flies or the hotel has another night and the rooms are empty and the seats are empty, you are losing your product to sell. It is very complex to plan for the demand with the many time frames, going forward a year or going backwards a year. So, and you have different use cases. You have family travel, you have business travel, you have leisure travel. So very different use cases which make pricing intelligence very complex. And then you have things like ancillaries coming up, which really make it a challenge to do a total offer management on the pricing side, because you have to take various product components into account as well. So the pricing intelligence world in travel is super complex and is much more complex than what Amazon had to handle and what Uber is able to handle. Because you have to do timing, pricing, and the individual components of your offer, and you have to all maximize that or optimize that at the same time. So what are airlines doing today? If you look into airlines, how are they handling pricing intelligence or offer management? You see here a few campaigns from various airlines. And usually what airlines are doing, they are doing email campaigns, price offers on certain routes or on certain products. And they restrict this in a certain way so that they don't get too much demand, but also not too little demand. So there are rules involved. But those rules are preset by the airline based on certain, supply parameters, how many seats do I still have available, and very rarely on demand preferences from the consumer, okay? I think this is very important. It's campaign driven, and it's very rarely on real preferences from the consumer, mostly on previous searches, on previous bookings. This is what a campaign does, correct? If I have low season going to the Indian subcontinent, I make a pricing campaign and offer my seats at a certain price. That's a typical pricing campaign or offer management you're seeing. So, but it's only the first step towards dynamic pricing, which actually is a variable management of total offers driven by demand and customer preferences. So, and it's a complex world, and everybody understands something different by dynamic pricing, but it is basically the combination of all of these things in a very dynamic, minute-to-minute, second-to-second way. So if you take a little sidestep, because how many of you are members of loyalty programs? Everybody, correct? How many is a member of more than 2 loyalty programs? Okay, well, probably 5 we will get to, correct? So, and I'm mentioning this because here is a rich data source an airline has available, because the customers who have signed up in this loyalty program are giving their data voluntarily, their preferences, to this airline, to this respective airline. And previous searches, their ability to pay, whether they fly with their families or whether they fly on business, this is all available in the loyalty program. Now, I have to say, it's really rich data, and for me, it's a rich data creator, the loyalty program, actually, because you're getting daily the data in. And I still remember, and this is more than 10 years back, when I was at Lufthansa, accountable for Miles & More, which you see also on the chart here. It took us a day to create a specialized campaign where we would be targeting the people who fly to North America and who have one way on Lufthansa and the return they had on another airline. And they were gold members. And so we targeted them with a very specific campaign, telling them, if you fly a round trip in the next 2 weeks, you get double miles, okay? We had more than a 90% take rate on this campaign, but it took us 2 days to create the campaign, to run it and send out the email. Those were the days in 2006 or so, correct? Today with big data, the possibilities are very, very different. And I think the preferences you have in the loyalty program, you have the pricing behavior, because you know what the people are willing to pay. You have the reactions to incentives. You can incentivize them with reduced Wi-Fi prices or reduced meal prices, whatever the particular airline is doing. And you have experiences how behavior can be changed. So the loyalty program is actually a very rich data source for every airline in order to use preferences for decision making and obviously dynamic pricing in the end as well. So why is that so important? Well, you have heard that Amazon and others are really pricing dynamically, right, in the retail world. However, travel is coming from a standardized world. It is coming from a world where the complexity in the 60s and 70s very much was reduced on purpose due to gaining efficiency, due to gaining scale. This is what the GDS, as they were sponsoring here, this is what the GDS were founded for, standardizing, efficiency, bringing stuff together in the same way to many, many millions and hundreds of millions of consumers. And by the way, it works really well, okay? However, if you standardize an offer, you also standardize the pricing, and that's what came then with the booking classes and everything, which now precludes the travel industry a little bit going into the direction of dynamically pricing or pricing individual customer segments or individual regional segments or other things, because the GDS are not built for that, and I think it's fair to admit it. You know, that is nothing negative or positive. The share of GDS bookings, I don't know if everybody knows, of global airline bookings is, what would you say? It's between 40 and 50%, correct? Total GDS bookings, what did you say? No, 70%, no. Here in the region, yes, but globally, the Middle East region is still higher, but globally, between 40 and 50% of all bookings go through the GDS. The other half, basically, is going direct in various ways. Could be tour bookings, blocked seat arrangements, other things, correct? So, but the GDS were there for a very good reason, and they will be there for a very good reason in the future. There's not going to change. But it is something which is harder to achieve dynamic pricing with, right? So that's where, here comes NDC. And this is a chart I used from Yatta. But basically, what is NDC? NDC is a technology stack which enables you to unbundle the offer and then bundle it again for certain customer segments in a much more flexible way. And NDC is understood by many airlines, by almost every airline, a little differently. It is not a standard. It is something which is individual and which will allow, in the end, dynamic pricing and total offer management really to take off, you know, if you combine it with the other parts of the airline systems, which is equally important. So the GDS have driven efficiency, and they still do it today. Just remember, if you have a search on an OTA website today, where you don't know, you know, which airline you want to choose, on the London-New York route, you have 1 billion options to go every single day. And what the GDS are doing, they're reducing that within seconds to, let's say, the top 20 or so for you to book one. That's very, very important. But it is for a consumer who wants to go from London to New York and has no preferences. Just imagine that you have a customer, you know the preferences, you know what he's been doing in the past, then you should be able to proactively do him an offer rather than wait for somebody else to sort this. And this is what NDC is about and what they can help with in the various different standards. And I think today, these two charts, maybe 2-3 years ago, would have been antagonistic charts, old world, new world. All the three GDS have embraced NDC. They are actively working towards this and with the airlines on it. So I think this new world will evolve very quickly, in my opinion. So, which is very good. So let's take a look forward and also start with the outside in of this, correct? So, and look at personalization, what I just described, personalizing an offer, correct? I just described that, what an airline could do, and we will come back to that. But let's take a look outside. And I brought everybody using Netflix here. My wife is very heavily using Netflix, I have to admit, but what is Netflix doing? And Netflix is gathering a really vast amount of data while you watch, correct? They exactly know when you start something, when you stop it, how long you watch it, if you don't come back to something and you use something else. And they use this on a rotating basis to make you suggestions what to watch, when to watch it as well. Because every time you enter Netflix, those of you who are using know it, you have a different screen. A different screen. It's personalized every time you come. And by the way, Netflix is not doing any segmentation based on age or gender, which you would expect from almost everybody else who is doing market segmentations. People would segment by age or gender and other segments, but Netflix is not doing that. They create a personal profile with their amount of data, and then they use this data in order to make you preference suggestions. So same Spotify. If you use Spotify, it's the same. You will get suggestions based on the music you have been listening to. They will suggest you artists, other playlists, other things. But again, they will not segment you based on age and gender. They will segment you based on the interaction you had with the brand, the customer preferences you are displaying. And what they do with that is they get to know the consumer really well, their consumer, and they redefine the offer every day. You know, it's a constant dynamic offer management process, or both of them are doing. Now, Netflix is making money, Spotify is still not making money, so let's see. But I do think that may be something like an Amazon case. In a few years, you will see that they make tremendous amounts of money. So, what does that mean? And I think that's a great segue for travel, personalization and travel. First of all, as the consumers have been made aware by all these other industries, the people really like personalization. Over 56% of all travelers, this is a survey from the US and the UK, actually want to get personalized offers. And I'm sure in the minute they got the first personalized offer, they would even want it more, correct? Because it is according to their preferences. Families and business travelers are much higher than the 56%, right? So this is also important to note, because business travelers, as we all know, are the ones who make the money for the airlines, for example, or also for the hotels, correct? So the customers are waiting for it. So let's take a look what is actually going on in the airline industry, and or in the travel industry for that matter. I want to give you two examples. The first one is some airlines have started meal personalization. You may have seen this. BA and Singapore are two examples where you can pre-select your meal in business class or first class, however, only based on a list of suggestions. You get 3 or 4 suggestions, and then you have proactively engaged 3 or 4 days before that. Nobody is making you a suggestion, or nobody is telling you, look, Harold, last time you drank this Chablis on the flight, we have this again on the flight, do you want to pre-order it, okay? This is still not happening, but it's a great opportunity. Because remember, you have this consumer for 8 hours or 6 hours on a long-haul flight locked in your brand. He's sitting in this plane, or she is sitting in this plane. You can do all these nice things with him and give him your preferential treatment. And meal preferences is one of the things which everybody is doing in an airplane, so why not personalize that? And I do think that data can help a lot. It has nothing to do with the business airfares in, but it has partially as well, because as you will see, we enable personalization and dynamic pricing on the pricing and the offer side. But this is what's happening. The other example here is from Virgin Hotels, and they actually have launched an app which is called Lucy, where you can, while you are going to the hotel, pre-order your minibar. You can pre-order kind of the movies you want to see. You know, if you haven't seen the latest Game of Thrones or something, you just enter it and they will have it available in the room for you. Or you can order the burger already, which you want to eat in the evening. That's a great way of really personalizing your stay with them and allowing you to get the remote control in your hand before you even arrive at the hotel. I think it's a great example of personalization. However, this is all not based on analyzing past customer behavior, because what you still have to do, you have to actively engage and tell the airline or the hotel, in this case, what you want. So there's no automatic preference generation, which you play automatically to the consumer. Something like last time you had a gin and tonic in the minibar or a Diet Coke. Are you okay with 3 Diet Cokes? Click yes or something. That is not happening yet. But I think there's huge potential for this, and it's all based on big data, which you have to generate and consume. So, where does it start a little bit in the travel industry? And I've brought a chart up here, which is very impressive in my opinion, and that's the ancillaries. And I think most of you know that the second biggest driver of profitability in any airline is pricing. The first one is the kerosene prices, if you're not hedging, but that is something which is more on the cost side of the business. If you look on the revenue side of the business, pricing, the yield development determines the profitability of an airline. You can see it in each quarterly report of an airline when they talk about their yield expectation for the future, how this could be happening. They also talk about load factor, but what drives the profitability is the yield, and is the price basically which you're setting. So, and Over the past years, there have been a few efforts to optimize that, and one of them obviously was launching ancillaries, And I gave you a few examples on the right side, mostly low-cost carriers or exclusively low-cost carriers who have basically started to unbundle the pricing and then also dynamically price those ancillaries, okay? So Spirit, for example, is making $55 for every passenger on average from ancillaries. $55. Okay? And Asia has a take rate of 7% on dynamically priced bags after the ticket has been purchased. Okay? So they revenue manage the bag prices and have a take rate of 7% when they offer it proactively to the customer. That's quite a good number. If you usually know that campaigns in the e-commerce sector have take rates of 1% or 2%, that's already going to be great. So 7% is fantastic. And Ryanair has just recently launched their hotel booking platform, and their ambition is nothing smaller than being the booking.com in Europe and basically having all the hotels booked through Ryanair.com. Whether that's going to work, we don't know, but it is ancillary revenue which they are trying to generate. So what does that have to do with pricing intelligence and dynamic pricing? What maybe 5 or 10 years ago has been a competition based on the lowest fare in economy class, for sure, correct, is today both a competition on lowest fares and ancillary pricing. The unbundling and the bundling into fare families and other things is actually the effort to increase the yield and better dynamically price your product, the seat in an airline, in order to maximize profitability. So, and this trend, I think, in the next couple of years is going to be increasing rather than decreasing. So, why do we think that is important? And this is basically what we have seen over the past 2 years. We have seen, and Infare is a leading provider of airfare competitive benchmarking globally. We have seen data increase from our customers. So demand from our customers for competitive airfare data go up 50% every year over the last 2 years. That is an amazing number, but it shows that in order to define those customer preferences from a pricing side, you need this competitive information. Think back to Amazon. When they started, they were very rigid in getting every competitive price they could get hold of in order to make their pricing decisions. And that's what we are seeing is starting in the travel industry now. People are using more and more competitive airfare data in order to make their own pricing decisions. And with total offer management, with dynamic pricing getting more frequent, you will see that this will increase. Why is that the case? NDC allows the airline to take their offer to new channels, to target specific segments. It's a technical backbone. However, you can then target smaller groups of customers with individual prices. So you have more prices to smaller amounts of customers. No standardization, specialization. Okay? So then you as an airline try to generate new revenue sources through bundling and unbundling in fare families. The whole ancillaries piece. You either unbundle it or you bundle it together in a fare family. Okay? Again, complexity increases from a pricing side because you have more prices to manage. You have to dynamically manage all these prices together. And sometimes, a competitor does not have a bag fee, but you have one. So how do you factor that in the total price? And what are you predicting this is going to be developing? So a very complex environment. So personalization. Everybody wants to go to the holy grail of addressing the profitable consumer with the profitable price. That's what personalization is. It's on the pricing side, but also on the service side, of course. And maybe you also offer personalized service on this. And then dynamic pricing means that the speed of making pricing decisions will increase. While in the past, maybe a booking class was priced every couple of weeks, you have airlines today who change their price on specific routes 10 to 15 times a day, okay? Highly competitive routes. That is happening. So if you get a competitive fare once a day, which the majority of our customers do, that is good. But then in the afternoon, the picture may look totally different. So you will see that the frequency of competitive airfare pricing will include. So what does that mean overall? In order to enable pricing intelligence to step up, which you have to do in order to make more money out of dynamic pricing and total offer management, you need more frequency and more data as an airline, and we are seeing this is already happening today. And you need also pricing intelligence solutions which sort you through this vast amount of big pricing data and get you the relevant information so that you can make the decision as an airline or as a hotel to optimize your price. And that is the holy grail where airlines usually use various data sources. One of them is from us for sure, but there are other ones which you can combine as well. But bringing all of this together, which means that the pricing decision is going to get more and more an automated pricing decision in a dynamic world, and you need for that the outside-in input from your competitors and what they are doing. So, in fare, I think some of you may know, we are the leading provider of competitive airfare airfare data and obviously pricing intelligence solutions. We are used by more than 300 customers, out of which 250 are airlines. So the airlines are starting really to embrace this concept of using more data in order to get a much richer and much more intelligent view on their situation in the competitive arena. So how do we do this? We collect over 2 billion unique airfares every day. And we do this in a very innovative gift-to-get model, meaning that whoever wants to have the data does need to give their data into this marketplace. While this is an idea which is around from somewhere else as well, like eBay or other marketplaces you do know, payment sites like PayPal do the same. You really have a very innovative model because it also helps you to reduce the cost of getting this airfare data into a marketplace, because if you wouldn't do that, then let's say 200 airlines would try to screen scrape the site of this one airline where they want to get the competitive information from, and the whole system cost would be prohibitive. So this is also a very cost-effective model of kind of organizing the competitive airfare data for the marketplace. We cover over 90% of all commercial airline routes, which is 130,000 routes where you can get competitive airfare data from us. We always provide the lowest available fare in a single cabin. We can do other things, but that is the bunch of the business. We can do also for families and other things, but this is the demand, what the demand right now is. And we distribute then these 2.5 billion unique airfares 3.5 billion times every day to our customers in order for them to enable dynamic pricing decisions. And obviously, machine learning and artificial intelligence are our daily breakfast, as I say, because without that, we wouldn't be able to handle that amount of data, getting it into and getting it out of the we have basically 4 different products which we are offering. There are some others, there are some niche products, but our main product is Pharos, which is an airfare benchmarking tool, which usually the revenue management analyst or the revenue management department, the pricing department would use in order to, I will show you an example later, to compare on a certain route the prices of various carriers and then make their pricing decision. That's used by more than 90% of all of our customers. We have a management tool which we call Airline PPS, which we do in collaboration with AirCube, where usually top management has the ability to see in which areas of an airline, let's say on the Asia to America routes, there are problems in pricing, and then they can drill down and work together with their revenue management teams to solve these issues. Obviously, we are partners with all revenue management systems. Basically, you can feed the data directly into those systems, whether it's Sabre, Pros, Amadeus, and then use them in your revenue management tool. So you don't need to use Pharos, but most of the customers do. And then I think it's very interesting for network planners, but also for strategy departments. We have the biggest historical database of airfares, 1 trillion and more every day, 2 billion are added. So you can count that. And with that, obviously, you can analyze pricing trends on certain routes over an extended period of time. Very important, for example, for network management or for airports, for that matter, who want to attract new routes. So this is the core of what we do. It all centers around the airfare. We are, as I always love to say, the friend of the airline, and we are the people who are providing this competitive data across the industry. So this is Pharos, and this is an example from, as we are in Dubai, from a London-Dubai route pretty recently. I'm not going to go into who is which carrier, but this shows you, as you see, that there are huge differences on individual days on this route from certain carriers, and some are priced higher than others. Now, that cannot be judged by us, but the individual revenue management analyst would be able to make their own conclusions and see whether their prices are the right ones. And this is, by the way, 90 days forward in this example. But we can go up to 360 days out and have all these prices for you available. We always have the prices which are bookable in the second in the market. We don't have available prices with zero availability. We have the ones which are on the websites and which are on the OTAs, which can be booked. That's, by the way, is also getting a very interesting, it's a little side field from, I think, from pricing intelligence, is that as the airlines are distributing their offers in more and more channels, they are also starting to get very interested to compare the channels, whether the price in one channel, let's say an OTA, is lower than on their own website, and that usually gets a lot of discussion. And we have tools for that as well, where you can show that and obviously analyze your prices on the various channels as well. So what does that mean? What does the future hold now, and what is coming? So I think there are a few messages I wanted to send before we go in questions, and I wanted to summarize for you. So travel, in my opinion, is just at the start of personalization and dynamic pricing. Other industries are much further advanced, but travel is just starting to do that, and it's going to come big time over the next couple of years. Big data and big pricing data are going to be very important components of that going forward. Total offer management, the decision what you offer and how you price it, is more complex in travel than in other industries, due to the perishable nature of the good, due to the many pricing components you have for the same product, which is one seat. Bags, seat reservation, meal prices, Wi-Fi. It's very complex. A refrigerator on Amazon is a refrigerator. Maybe you pay shipping costs, but that is not the travel world. The travel world is much more complex. Pricing and the pricing decision is the single biggest revenue driver outside of the oil price for any airline. So airlines will pay more and more attention on it, and they will invest more and more money in it. And the accurate competitive airfare, just think back Amazon 10 or 15 years ago, where their competitive pricing information was the most important tool to make money on e-commerce. And the competitive airfare is going to be the key driver of making the right pricing decisions and optimizing the yield and then the revenue. And this may sound logic, but it is something which we see with the huge increase in data which we are getting. So it is the driver of success. And for us, that means that we have to cater to the needs of the industry. And so ancillaries and alerts, predictions of prices are all going to be on our roadmaps for the next couple of years, so that we can not only provide you the airfare, but also price comparisons on ancillaries, which we already do partially now. Alerts, obviously, when stuff changes, very important in a complex world. And then the holy grail of predicting where an airfare is going. If anybody has cracked the holy grail, I'm happy. I'm free for dinner. Okay, so I just wanted to say so. With that, I want to close and open it up for any questions, and thank you very much. Okay.
I've got one question to you because I used to be working with one of projects that required a recommendation algorithm, very similar to the one that you described for Netflix and Spotify. And from my perspective, it looks that it can be very hard to gather enough information, the volume of information, to build a personalized profile of people for the future. Like you said regarding gin and tonic, for example, if you have that information that someone is doing that once per 2 weeks, it's not enough because when you look at Netflix, you watch Netflix every day, you listen to the music almost 12 hours a day, let's say. So do you think that it will be really possible?
Uh, yeah, absolutely. I think so, because this has all to do with machine learning and automation of this data collection and then taking conclusions. I mean, Netflix doesn't have 200,000 data scientists, okay? They have machine learning tools. And I do think that you see on the pricing side, actually, when you see our data, which we have kind of processed over the last 10 years and the increase, and you know, Infair is not a Netflix company from a size point of view, that this can be done with automation, machine learning, and a lot of data intelligence, which our engineers put into compressing the data, analyzing the data, and then redistributing it again. Now, on the gin and tonic example, you have to collect the data first. So somebody has to input it somewhere, but also that can be optimized. You have an invoice where somebody is paying. You have other things where you can, with artificial intelligence, pick those things out, and then still a human needs to do this, put the rules in there with how you want to respond to that. So if somebody has bought a gin tonic once, do you want to offer it to him? Or maybe if he has done it 5 times, then you would maybe say you would do it, but maybe not once. But that's up to you, correct?
And to build on that, one more question. Have you tried to partner with one of the fintech companies like Revolut, for example? Because what you said right now about looking at an invoice, it can be totally automated by partnering with a fintech company because they have that kind of data.
Not specifically with fintech, but obviously with other startups in the data intelligence world we are working. I think that's a good. If you have any good idea, we can talk about this afterwards. I already heard Revolt. I remember that, but you can probably say more about this. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much, everybody, and have a great rest of the show and a successful afternoon. Thank you.